Hey guys, Woods Farm here. Just back out with another tactical outdoors video. This time I'm going to be starting a series on land nav, and I'm going to start that series with a discussion on map reconnaissance and route finding. So stick around and check it out. Hey guys, this is going to be the first in a series of videos I do on land navigation. And the first thing you need to do when it comes to planning a trip into a new area is map reconnaissance and route finding. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that. We're going to talk a little bit about traditional topographic maps first, and the various ways that I go about map reconnaissance and route finding, and also navigation. One of the reasons I think analog maps are important and also as a navigation tool is I don't have a lot of trust in modern GPS and using cell phones for navigation for various reasons. GPS satellites can be compromised and jammed, and obviously cell phones are not secure. So I don't personally believe they are the best way to navigate for these reasons. So basically, map reconnaissance is using maps as a tool to look at an area and do a reconnaissance. So instead of being on the ground, eyes on the ground sort of scenario, looking at the terrain, the first step is you're looking at maps to try to get an idea of the lay of the land. First and foremost, you can start off with government issued 1 to 50,000 scale topographic maps. These are super available. They're easy to order online and get for any area. The scale tends to be a little large on these, so the detail isn't always there, but it's a good starting point. If you're lucky, you can find topographic maps in a different smaller scale that are a lot better for doing map reconnaissance and route finding. These types of maps show a lot more detail, especially with contour lines, getting an idea of the lay of the land. So if you can get your hands on one of these, highly recommended. The next thing we got is there's various sources of online maps. This is Cal Topo. I printed this one off of an area. Okay, so the cats decided to join us. Another option are various online sources for topographic maps. This one is Cal Topo that I printed off. And this is a great option because you can mess around with the scale. And this map has MGRS on it, which is great. Okay, so like I was saying, CalTopo, great option online. You can print these out. They have MGRS grid referencing on them, which is great. A lot of these government issued have the standard old school sort of grid referencing, which doesn't necessarily link up with other options. And depending on the area, you might be able to find other printed maps that also show trails in different sort of detail. If you can get your hands on these, they can also be super helpful. So you start your map reconnaissance with these basic maps, but then from there you can move out, and you want to do as much research as possible. One option I like is using a Google Earth. It gives you sort of a nice satellite view, and you can get a lot of information from Google Earth. Whether you're using the regular standard style Google Earth, you can zoom in and out, and you can see a lot of detail on that map from that satellite image, and you can sort of relay it back to the topographic map that you're working with. You can see what type of tree cover is there potentially, if the terrain is swampy, lots of stuff you can see on Google Earth. Another cool thing about Google Earth, if you download the actual app, you can get the history setting, which is great because what happens is you can actually see that satellite view, but you can actually go back and you can see historical satellite images. So you may see an image of the area you're looking at in a different season, which can be super helpful. It'll tell you if it's like a hardwood forest, what kind of tree cover there is. You can sometimes see images in the winter with snow cover. So you'll get a better idea of the basic conditions of the area. So using Google Earth, satellite view, the cursor, if you scroll around, you can actually pick up points and get the actual specific latitude and longitude. And this is super helpful if you're looking for points of interest and you want to pull up that lat and longitude. And then there are a number of online websites you can go to where you can actually convert MGRS and various grid formats into lat and longitude, or you can convert latitude and longitude into MGRS. Super helpful. This is the one page I like to use specifically. So I'll copy the lat and longitude from the satellite view. I'll go over to this web page. You plug in those numbers and you go to the calculate, and it'll bring up a new page, and that'll have all your information on it with your different grid references, MGRS, all that'll be there. And I specifically like the option where you can go over and there's some hyperlinks. You click on those, it'll open up another page and it goes back to Google and you'll see that exact point. So it's a good way to check and make sure, double check everything. If you put a number in wrong or something, you want to make sure you got the point is actually what you're looking at and what you want. Another useful tool on Google is just measuring distances and plotting routes that way. You can get it. It basically only lets you use straight line, but you can put in all the various waypoints along a route, and it's going to measure that distance for you. I find this super helpful just to kind of get a rough idea of how far a route is or where we're going. That kind of distance, super important. Another pretty useful tool for map reconnaissance on Google Earth is basically the Street View. Super helpful. Depending if you're operating anywhere near roads, a lot of times those even secondary roads will have a street view. And if you're planning your route and you pull up the street view, it will give you a good idea of the terrain you're dealing with, the hills, what kind of buildings or cover are in the area. So using that street view to take a look at what's going on the ground ahead of time, I consider that definitely part of map reconnaissance, and it's very useful. So in addition to Google Earth, another resource that's good to check is the Crown Land Atlas. This is actually a pretty good map in its own right. You can see some terrain features, roads, that kind of stuff, and it has a lot of different layers that you can add. You can see property boundaries, property usage, ownership, that kind of stuff. So this is a very useful tool to take a look at when you're doing map reconnaissance. The last thing I do as part of map reconnaissance is I do some Googling for open source information. A lot of times you can find like secondary trail maps from snowmobile ATV clubs. There's a lot of information out there for trail networks and various things like that. You can find photographs of the area online. All that kind of stuff is super useful when it comes to researching, trying to get a feel for what's going on the ground before you go out and do your operation. So my basic methodology for map reconnaissance, route finding, looking for the path I want to travel on is I sort of start with basic old school topographic maps, and then I kind of branch out from there and get as much information as I can on the area. I overlap everything, I compile everything together. So, before you get boots on the ground, you have the best overall idea of what to expect. Okay, guys, that's my process for map reconnaissance and route finding. I'm by no means an expert, but I do have some trips under my belt at this point into some pretty remote areas, and this is the process that I go through to research things and plan a route ahead of time. If you have any questions or comments, leave them below, and as always, thanks for watching.